Somebody who is kind of epitomizes what you think your country stands for. And it's a huge advantage if you have somebody who can be recognized as that, and not just in your country, but...
The British royal family looks calm on the surface, but underneath, something extraordinary is happening. One woman is quietly blocking another from claiming the most powerful thing in the monarchy. Is Anne deliberately shutting Camilla out, and has she already chosen Catherine as the true heir to the Queen's legacy? Join us as we uncover the invisible battle, reshaping the future of the British monarchy forever. The war no one sees. There is a battle happening inside the British royal family. Almost no one is talking about it. This battle has no shouting. There are no arguments in public, no angry words in front of cameras, and no dramatic scenes at royal events. It is fought in silence, and that is exactly what makes it so powerful. Most people watching the royal family today are focused on King Charles and Queen Camilla. The cameras follow them everywhere. The newspapers write about them every week. If you only read the headlines, you would think the story of the modern royal family begins and ends with those two people. But there is someone else in the picture. Someone standing just to the side, just out of the spotlight. Someone who has been there for a very long time. That person is Princess Anne. Anne is the only daughter of the late Queen Elizabeth II. She has spent more than 50 years working for the royal family. She has attended more official events than almost any other royal in history. She has never been caught up in scandal. She has never chased fame. She has simply shown up, year after year, and done the work. But now, something is shifting. Anne is no longer just doing the work. She appears to be making moves, quiet and careful moves, the kind of moves that most people miss entirely. She seems to be deciding what the future of the royal family should look like, and who deserves to lead it. The war no one sees has already begun. The protocol moments that spoke loudly. Most people who follow the royal family know the basic rules. There is an order to everything, so when someone breaks them, it means something. In 2024, Princess Anne attended an event at the University of London. It was a formal occasion, the kind where protocol is expected to be followed without question. But at that event, Anne did something that caught the attention of royal watchers around the world. She refused to give precedence to Queen Camilla. Precedence is the official order of importance. It decides who goes first, who is greeted first. She had given her life to protecting. She watched the public lose trust, and she watched the family struggle to recover it. That experience does not simply disappear, and who receives the most formal signs of respect. For a queen consort, receiving precedence is part of the role. It is not a personal favor, it is simply what is supposed to happen. Anne did not follow that expectation. Then came Commonwealth Day, another major event, another public stage, and another moment where Anne's behavior sent a message that was impossible to ignore. She did not curtsy to Queen Camilla. A curtsy is one of the most visible signs of respect inside the royal family. It is a physical act that says, clearly and openly, that you recognize someone's position above your own. Members of the royal family are expected to curtsy to the Queen. It is not optional. It is not a matter of personal feeling. It is protocol, but Anne did not do it. Now, one moment like this could be dismissed. People make mistakes. Events move quickly. Maybe something was missed. But two moments, at two separate high-profile occasions, in front of cameras and crowds, begins to look very different. Royal watchers began to pay closer attention. They started looking back through footage and photographs, trying to understand whether these were isolated incidents or part of a wider pattern. What they found made the picture even more interesting. This was not carelessness. Anne is one of the most experienced members of the royal family alive today. She has attended thousands of official events. She knows the rules better than almost anyone. These moments were not accidents. They were choices, and choices made in public by someone with Anne's experience and position are never made without a reason. Something was being communicated, carefully and deliberately, through actions rather than words. The question was no longer whether Anne was sending a message. The question was what that message meant and who it was really aimed at. The rule that changed everything. To understand why Anne's behavior matters so much, you have to go back 20 years. In 2005, something quietly significant happened inside the British monarchy. A document was drawn up under the authority of Queen Elizabeth II. That document dealt with a very specific question, one that had been made necessary by a very specific event. That event was the marriage of Prince Charles to Camilla Parker Bowles. When Camilla entered the royal family, questions arose about how other members of the family should treat her. What was her position? What respect was she owed? And critically, who was required to curtsy to her? The document that Queen Elizabeth approved gave a clear answer. Members of the royal family would be expected to curtsy to Camilla when the Prince of Wales was present. It was a formal recognition of her new role, written into the rules that govern royal life. But the document contains something else, something that has only become more significant with time. Princess Anne was exempted. According to the terms of that 2005 agreement, Anne was not required to curtsy to Camilla. The exemption was not hidden or unofficial. It was written into the document itself, approved at the highest level of the institution, under the direct authority of the Queen. At the time, this was noted by some royal commentators and then largely forgotten. It seemed like a minor footnote in a much larger story about Charles and Camilla's place in the family. Most people moved on, but the exemption never went away. It remained in place as the years passed. It remained in place as Charles became king and Camilla became queen consort. And when Anne declined to curtsy at Commonwealth Day and refused to give precedence at the University of London, that old document suddenly became very relevant again. What had looked like a personal slight began to look like something with a much deeper foundation. Anne was not simply being difficult. She was not acting out of emotion or stubbornness. She was operating within a framework that had been established 2 decades earlier, under the authority of a queen she had served for her entire life. The exemption was institutional, it was official, and it was still valid. This was not rebellion, this was a position that had been built into the structure of the monarchy itself, quietly and carefully, long before anyone outside the family was paying close attention. The rule that changed everything had been in place all along. Most people simply had not noticed it yet. Selective respect, the strategy. Here is where things become genuinely fascinating. If Princess Anne were simply hostile to Camilla, the story would be straightforward. A family feud, a power struggle between 2 women who do not get along. That kind of story is easy to understand and easy to dismiss, but that is not what is happening. In public, Anne has spoken warmly about Camilla on multiple occasions. She has acknowledged Camilla's role within the family. She has appeared alongside her at official events without visible tension. To anyone watching casually, the relationship between the 2 women appears perfectly cordial. And yet, in the same period, Anne has refused to curtsy. She has withheld precedence. She has declined to perform the symbolic acts that would, in the eyes of the institution and the watching world, place Camilla above her in the order of things. Both of these things are true at the same time. Anne praises Camilla openly, and Anne withholds symbolic deference consistently. That combination is not accidental. It is not confusion, it is a strategy. What Anne appears to be doing is drawing a very careful distinction between 2 different things. The first is Camilla as a person, a woman she has known for many years and with whom she can engage in a civilized and even friendly way. The second is Camilla as a symbol, as the holder of a title and a position that Anne does not appear to accept as equivalent to the kind of authority that title might suggest. This is not the behavior of someone acting on impulse or emotion. This is the behavior of someone who has thought very carefully about what they are doing and why. Someone who understands that in the world of the monarchy, symbols carry enormous weight. A curtsy is not just a curtsy. Precedence is not just a formality. These acts tell a story about power, legitimacy, and who truly holds authority within the family. By withholding them selectively, Anne is telling a story of her own. She is not waging a public war. She is playing a longer, quieter game, one built on precision rather than confrontation, on symbols rather than statements. This is not a family argument, this is chess. The weight of history between 2 women. To understand what is happening between Princess Anne and Camilla today, you have to understand how long these 2 women have known each other. This is not a relationship that started recently. It is not a new tension born from new circumstances. Anne and Camilla have existed in the same world, inside and around the British royal family, for decades. They were both present during some of the most difficult and turbulent chapters in the history of the modern monarchy. Camilla was connected to Prince Charles long before she became his wife. That connection stretched across many years. through his first marriage to Princess Diana, through the public scandal that followed, and through the long and complicated road that eventually led to the 2005 wedding. Throughout all of that, Anne was there watching and understanding exactly what was happening and why. Anne is not a woman who acts without awareness. She is one of the most experienced and clear-eyed members of the royal family alive today. She has seen the institution tested, damaged, and rebuilt. She has watched public opinion turn against the family and then slowly recover. She knows better than almost anyone what the monarchy costs and what it requires from the people who carry it. So, when Anne behaves in a particular way toward Camilla, it is not coming from a place of ignorance. It is not a reaction born from gossip or surface-level feeling. It is coming from a place of deep historical knowledge, from 50 years of watching this family from the inside. That history matters because it shapes everything Anne does now. There is no record of open hostility between the two women. There are no leaked stories of arguments or confrontations. On the surface, their relationship appears manageable, even respectful in certain moments. But underneath that surface, there is a weight that never goes away. Anne watched what happened to the monarchy during the years when Camilla's relationship with Charles was at the center of public controversy. She watched the damage that was done to the institution she had given her life to protecting. She watched the public lose trust, and she watched the family struggle to recover it. That experience does not simply disappear. It sits in the background of every interaction, every public appearance, every symbolic gesture or refusal. When Anne withholds a curtsy, she is not just making a statement about titles or protocol. She is drawing on everything she has witnessed over 5 decades. Her actions are informed by history, and history, in this family, carries enormous weight. The 75th birthday masterstroke. In 2025, Princess Anne turned 75 years old. For most people, a 75th birthday is a major milestone. A moment to celebrate, to look back, to be honored by the people around you. For a member of the royal family at that level, a birthday like this would typically be marked with public events, tributes, and ceremonies designed to recognize a lifetime of service. Anne did something very different. Instead of organizing celebrations focused on herself, Anne hosted a charities forum, a working event, a gathering built entirely around the organizations and causes she has supported throughout her career. There were no grand personal tributes. There was no pageantry centered on her own legacy. There was simply work, carried out in the same quiet and determined way she has always operated. To a casual observer, this might seem like humility, and in one sense, it is. Anne has never been interested in personal glory. She has always placed the work above the recognition. But there was something else happening at that forum that went far beyond humility. Anne used the occasion to absorb a significant number of patronages that had previously belonged to the late Queen Elizabeth II. Patronages are formal connections between a royal family member and a charity or organization. They carry influence, credibility, and access. When a senior royal holds a patronage, it signals to the world that this cause matters, that it has the backing of the institution. Queen Elizabeth held hundreds of them. When she died, those patronages needed new homes. Some went to King Charles, some went to other members of the family, and a significant number went to Anne. By choosing her 75th birthday as the moment to formally take on this expanded role, Anne was sending a message that was both personal and strategic. She was saying that her work was not slowing down. She was saying that she was not stepping back. She was saying that she was stepping forward, deliberately and with purpose, into a larger space within the institution. This was a woman building. The birthday forum was not a celebration of the past. It was the launch of something new, a consolidation of resources, connections, and influence that had taken decades to accumulate and was now being channeled in a clear direction. Most people watching from the outside saw a hard-working royal marking another year. What was actually happening was far more deliberate. Anne was quietly expanding her position within the monarchy, using the most important birthday of her recent life, not to receive, but to act. That is not humility, that is strategy. The legacy machine, 20,000 engagements. There is a number that defines Princess Anne's place in royal history, and that number is extraordinary. Over the course of her working life, Anne has completed more than 20,000 official engagements. 20,000 separate appearances, events, visits, ceremonies, openings, and public duties, carried out across more than 50 years of continuous service to the British monarchy. To put that in perspective, no other working royal in the modern era comes close to that figure. It is not a record that was chased or publicized. Anne has never stood in front of a camera and drawn attention to how hard she works. The number simply accumulated year after year through consistent and relentless dedication to the role she was born into. For most of her career, this record was understood in one way. Anne was the hardest working royal. Full stop. The engagements were a measure of commitment, of duty, of a woman who took her responsibilities seriously and never looked for an excuse to step back. That framing was accurate, but it was also incomplete. Because when you look at what Anne has been doing in recent years, a different picture begins to form. The work has not just continued, it has shifted. The engagements are no longer simply about showing up and fulfilling obligations. They are becoming part of something larger, a carefully constructed foundation of influence, credibility, and institutional authority that now has a clear direction. Anne has spent decades building relationships with organizations across the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. She has earned trust from charities, military institutions, universities, sporting bodies, and community groups. These are not surface-level connections built on a single visit or a photograph. They are deep, long-standing relationships built on repeated engagement and genuine commitment. That network is enormously powerful, and Anne is now using it with intention. The patronages she absorbed following Queen Elizabeth's death were not dropped into an empty space. They landed inside an existing infrastructure, one that Anne had been quietly constructing for 50 years. The new responsibilities connected to a foundation that was already strong, already trusted, and already capable of carrying significant weight. This is what makes Anne different from any other member of the royal family operating today. Her influence is not based on title or media attention. It is based on something much harder to build and much harder to take away. It is based on a lifetime of showing up. Now that lifetime of work is pointing somewhere. The consistency that once looked like simple duty is revealing itself as something more deliberate. The legacy machine has been running for 50 years. It is only now becoming clear what it was always being built for. The Catherine alignment begins. There is a moment in every long game when the pieces on the board start to reveal the pattern. When what looked like separate moves suddenly connect and the strategy becomes visible. That moment, in this story, is Catherine. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, entered the royal family as a young woman marrying into one of the most scrutinized institutions on the planet. The public watched her closely from the very beginning. The media tracked her every appearance, her every outfit, her every word. For a long time, much of that attention was shallow, focused on image and celebrity rather than substance. But underneath that surface, something else was developing. Catherine was building, quietly, carefully, and with a focus that became more visible the longer you watched. Her early work in philanthropy was not random or scattered. It followed a pattern centered on areas like early childhood development, mental health, and family support. These were not glamorous causes that attracted easy headlines. They were serious, long-term fields that required patience, research, and genuine commitment to make any real difference. She did not approach them like a celebrity attaching her name to a worthy cause. She approached them like someone who intended to build something lasting. That distinction matters enormously inside the royal family. There is a difference between charity as performance and charity as institution building. One produces good photographs. The other produces real and lasting change. And the people inside the monarchy who understand the difference, who have spent their lives doing the real work rather than the performative version, notice which category a person falls into. Anne noticed. The values that Catherine was demonstrating in her work were the same values that have defined Anne's entire career. Duty over display, long-term impact over short-term attention, substance over spectacle. These are not easy values to maintain inside an institution that exists partly in the public eye and is constantly surrounded by media pressure and public expectation. Catherine was maintaining them. As Catherine's work grew in scope and seriousness, A quiet alignment began to form between the two women. It was not announced. There were no public statements of endorsement or support. But it showed in the way Anne engaged with Catherine at official events, in the way their public roles began to complement rather than compete with each other, and in the broader signals that Anne was sending about where she believed the future of the monarchy should be heading. Catherine was not just proving herself to the public, she was proving herself to the woman who understood better than anyone what genuine royal service actually looks like. The alignment had begun. Camilla versus the blueprint. By any measure, Camilla's journey to becoming queen has been remarkable. 20 years ago, large portions of the British public were deeply opposed to the idea of Camilla ever holding any formal royal title. She carried the weight of public blame for the breakdown of Charles and Diana's marriage. She was seen by many people as the reason the most beloved member of the royal family had suffered. Polls showed clear and consistent disapproval. The road ahead looked extremely difficult, and yet she traveled it, slowly, carefully, and with considerable skill. Over the years that followed, Camilla rebuilt her public image through a combination of patience, consistency, and shrewd management of her public appearances. She chose causes that resonated with the public. She showed warmth and humor in carefully selected settings. She allowed people to see a side of her that was accessible and human. The disapproval softened. The polls shifted. By the time Charles became king, the majority of the British public had accepted Camilla as queen consort. That is a genuine achievement. It should not be underestimated. But acceptance is not the same thing as legacy, and public approval is not the same thing as institutional authority. This is the distinction that sits at the heart of what Anne appears to be communicating through her behavior. Camilla has earned her title. She has earned her place beside the king. She has done the work of winning over a skeptical public, and she has largely succeeded. Within the formal structure of the monarchy, her position is clear and it is legitimate. But there is another kind of authority inside the royal family, one that is not handed down through marriage or formal appointment. It is not written in any document. It cannot be given by a king or approved by a government. It is built through decades of service, through the trust of institutions and communities, through a lifetime of showing up when no one is watching and doing the work anyway. That authority belongs to a very specific blueprint, a blueprint established over 70 years by Queen Elizabeth II and carried forward in daily practice by the woman who studied it most closely. Anne is not arguing that Camilla is unworthy of her title. She is making a different and more precise point. She is saying that the title and the legacy are two separate things, and that holding one does not automatically mean inheriting the other. Camilla is the queen, but the blueprint for what the monarchy's future should look like does not belong to her. That blueprint is still in Anne's hands, and Anne is deciding very carefully who deserves to receive it. The standard Catherine must meet. Every institution has a standard, an invisible line that separates the people who simply occupy a role from the people who genuinely embody it. Inside the British monarchy, that standard was set by Queen Elizabeth II over 7 decades of continuous and unwavering service. It was a standard built on presence, on consistency, on placing the institution above personal comfort, personal ambition, and personal feeling in almost every situation. It was not a standard that was ever written down or formally declared. It was demonstrated year after year in thousands of quiet moments that accumulated into something permanent. When Elizabeth died, she left that standard behind, and the question that followed, spoken in some circles and only implied in others, was whether anyone in the next generation was capable of meeting it. Anne has spent her entire career meeting it. That is not in question. But Anne also understands that she is not the future. She is the bridge. Her role now is not to carry the standard forward indefinitely, but to ensure it is passed to someone worthy of it. That someone is Catherine. In the period following her serious illness, Catherine's return to public life was watched with enormous attention. The public had seen her disappear from view during a deeply difficult period, and her reappearance was emotionally charged for many people. There was relief, there was admiration, there was a surge in public affection that was genuine and significant. But Anne was not watching for public affection. She was watching for something else entirely. She was watching to see whether Catherine would return as a celebrity seeking sympathy, or as a working royal recommitting to the long and unglamorous work of building something lasting. The distinction matters. Many people in Catherine's position would have leaned into the public sympathy, used the emotional moment to build personal profile, and allowed the harder institutional work to take a secondary role. Catherine did not do that. She came back focused. Her philanthropic commitments deepened rather than retreated. Her early childhood work expanded in scope and seriousness. She moved with the quiet determination of someone who understood exactly what the role required and had made a clear decision to meet that requirement fully. Anne was watching all of it. The standard that Anne carries is demanding. It does not reward performance or popularity. It rewards consistency, sacrifice, and a willingness to place the institution above everything personal. Catherine has not just returned from difficulty. She has returned stronger, more focused, and more clearly aligned with the values that define genuine royal service. In Anne's eyes, the standard has been met. The test, long and quietly administered, appears to have been passed. The invisible succession. Every monarchy has two kinds of power: the kind you can see and the kind you cannot. The kind you can see is legal. It is written in documents, confirmed by governments, and announced to the world. It passes from one person to the next in a clear and formal line. King Charles holds it now. Prince William will hold it next. That succession is not in question. It is not in dispute. It follows rules that have existed for centuries. But there is another kind of succession happening inside the British royal family right now. It carries no official title. It will never be announced in a formal ceremony. No document will confirm it, and no government will approve it. It is a succession of legacy, of moral authority, the deep, institutional trust that takes decades to build and cannot be transferred simply by handing someone a crown. Queen Elizabeth built that authority over 70 years. When she died, it did not automatically pass to anyone. It entered a space that needed to be navigated carefully by someone who understood its value and knew exactly where it belonged. That someone is Anne. And Anne, through every curtsy withheld, every patronage absorbed, every quiet alignment with Catherine, has been doing one thing. She has been directing that authority forward, not toward the title, not toward the crown, toward the person she believes has earned the right to carry it. Catherine, Princess of Wales, may never be queen by birth or by blood. But inside the invisible architecture of the monarchy, something significant has already shifted. The crown sits with Camilla. The throne will pass to William. But the legacy, the real and lasting power of what this institution means and who it belongs to, is already moving toward Catherine. The invisible succession has already begun. Drop your thoughts in the comments section below, like this video, and subscribe for more incredible stories just like this one.